Raise your hand if you know what tics is. You? What is it?
Kicking, compulsive behavior that the body cannot control. It's physical action.
Yes. So my TAPI project is teaching y'all about tics and Tourette's. Now this is important because y'all are in child development. If you want to be a teacher, this is very important because a lot of kids do have Tourette's. You may not know it, but it is just a common thing. So I have Tourette's and this is what I'm very passionate about. And yeah, I'll just be teaching y'all about this. Now, turn and talk with your partner. How do you think having these involuntary movements and saying stuff out loud, moving your body, how can that interfere with daily life? Turn and talk. Okay, anyone want to volunteer to give me an answer?
Oh, I was gonna say people acknowledging it, making fun of them. It could be that hard to hold a conversation,
We're actually gonna do a little activity just to show you another way. I need 2 volunteers. Does anyone want to volunteer? When I'm doing these normal challenges, it will be significantly harder whether you're raising your arm up or it just makes you kind of fail at certain things. So I hope y'all can get an understanding of if y'all are wanting to go into teaching, kids are gonna be able to not really, maybe they're dropping a pencil, maybe they're just doing stuff like that. So it's good to be aware of that. So we're gonna do understanding Tourette's. Now Tourette's is the most common disorder where there's tics. So the basics. Tics is an involuntary movement, like I was saying earlier. They can be either motor or vocal. So I'm maybe raising my arm up like that, or maybe I'm making a noise. It can be either one of those. Having tics is neither a mental or physical disability. It does not affect your intelligence. You would not be in a special education classroom if you had Tourette's. It's a neurological disorder, meaning it focuses on your nerves and the pathway from your brain to your nerves. Tic disorders in general, there's 4 main types of tic disorders. First we have Tourette's, which is the most common, which is vocal and motor tics that stay for a long time. We have provisional, which is where you have either vocal or motor tics for a short amount of time. So maybe it's in a period of your life. A lot of people with PTSD will have tics that are provisional, so meaning they only last maybe a year one time if they're really hard. Persistent, you can either have vocal or motor, so it's kind of half of the ones with Tourette's. Why do people tic? This is a question I get a lot as someone with Tourette's. It's on the basal ganglia. Now, if you're in psychology, you might know about this. Basal ganglia, it's a part in your brain that's what connects your thoughts and decisions of your movement to your actual body. So if I'm saying okay, I'm gonna raise my arm up, that's a conscious decision that I'm making. But there is an issue in my basal ganglia sending false signals, meaning I'm raising my hand up when I'm not actually deciding to do that. Debunking myths and stereotypes. Now I want everyone to stand up. We're gonna do a true or false activity. This side of the room will be true, this side of the room will be false. First, most people with Tourette's use obscene words and actions. This side is true, this side is false. Okay, so this is actually false. A lot of times on TikTok, you see people cursing or doing inappropriate things as their tics. So there's 1% of the population of what we know has tic disorders. Coprolalia is what makes people say inappropriate things and cursing and stuff, which is 0.001% of just the general population. So it is very, very rare. People can suppress their tics, meaning stop them or slow them down. True or false? This is actually true. Some people can suppress tics, which a lot of people don't really think about because it's an uncontrolled movement. We'll get into a lot of stuff behind suppressing a little more later. Here's some famous people with Tourette's that you may not have known. Billie Eilish, David Beckham, Louis Capaldi, and Mozart. Suppressing, what is it? Now, this is a very complicated thing because a lot of people know what suppressing is, even when people do have Tourette's. Did I do that? So suppressing, what is it? Holding it in. A lot of people call it holding it in. Many people can suppress tics, but you cannot eliminate it. So it is an uncontrolled movement, but you cannot just like completely stop it. You may be able to hold it all up, but sometimes when you stop, many tics will happen like a balloon under pressure. So maybe you're blowing and blowing into a balloon. Eventually, you might pop it, and all the air is gonna come out. Kind of like when you're suppressing. You're gonna like hold it in, but then eventually it's just all gonna come out. So sometimes that happens a lot. A lot of people call it ticking out or like a tic attacks. Your ability to suppress can vary from day to day based on environmental factors. Like maybe you have a big test coming up that day and you're a little nervous. That might be a little harder to suppress. Tics affecting life. So this is another thing going back to like how, like with this activity, we're just gonna go more into it. Some effects, these are the top 5 effects almost everyone with Tourette's lives. Bullying, a lot of people don't understand, especially in middle school and early on high school. Hopefully people will mature. Time consumption, whether it's maybe writing an essay, sometimes I draw my pencil. Even those few seconds can cause frustration and time consumption. Physical tics hurting. This is a big issue with some people, and it can cause arthritis, really bad back problems, whether it's just like moving your head like this. When I'm doing that hundreds of times a day, it affects your back. Shame and embarrassment. Sometimes a lot of people get a sense of shame and embarrassment because that's just an embarrassing thing in general, especially if no one knows it. Maybe it's a quiet classroom and I'm in the back of the classroom and then I make a strange noise. Like that just feels weird to me. So it can bring a sense of embarrassment. Messing up normal everyday things, whether it's curling your hair, sometimes getting burned, just little things like that can really add up. Going deeper emotionally. So first, people with Tourette's, tics is not the only symptom of Tourette's. A common symptom of Tourette's is ADHD, OCD. Those are symptoms of Tourette's. So that when people point out, it brings a sense of shame. Even if you're friends with them, even if they don't mean it in a disrespectful way, it's like, we know the tic happened. The kids know. If you're going to be teaching kids or have kids, they know the tic happened. So bringing it out kind of brings a sense of shame. Whether people not believing you is very common. A lot of people don't know I have Tourette's because I suppress at school. So feeling embarrassed, being pointed out, being filmed. This happens a lot of time in public. Whether I'm in a grocery store, sometimes I get filmed, and it's rare, but it does happen. And it's obviously not everyone that does that, but it's a rude thing that I do have to deal with a lot. Feeling frustrated when it interferes with daily life, kind of went this earlier with curling your hair. Seeing people with tics. Now this is very important, especially in a CTE class like this, because child development, if you're on the route of teaching, you're gonna see a lot of people with Tourette's. You're gonna see, if it's like in elementary school, middle school, high school, any of those, there is gonna be people with Tourette's. Be patient in a conversation. Sometimes like it can fill up a lot of time in the conversation, so it's very good to be patient. Don't ask if they're faking. A lot of teachers have done this to me, especially in elementary school, because I mean, yeah, it's a common concern, like, oh, my elementary schooler is just now telling me they have Tourette's. I don't know that, but it's good to just always believe them. Show acceptance. Don't kind of point it out in class. If you're in the middle of a conversation, just act like it didn't happen. If you see someone tic, just give them a smile. Frequently asked questions that I get as someone with Tourette's that I feel like a lot of people don't really know. Can I drive? I can drive, but it doesn't really affect you from getting your license. If you were to tic and mess up during your driver's test, you might not get your license, but actually having the disorder does not affect whether you can get your license or not. Can stress or anxiety make tics worse? Yes, it definitely can. Any strong emotion in general makes tics worse, whether it's being overly happy, being really mad, or being really anxious. Now we're gonna do a Book It. So everyone log into Book It.
Okay, so write down how you felt about the lesson. Did you learn anything? Did you give it to me?